think your pain broke you. You've spent years, maybe decades, believing that whatever shattered you, whatever tore through your life and left you bleeding in the dark, left you weaker, that your trauma, your loss, your betrayal, your failure, that brutal moment you never fully recovered from, was the end of you. And you're not alone in thinking that. Most people carry their pain like a curse. They hide it, suppress it, or worse. They wear it as an identity. They say, "I'm this way because of what happened to me." And then they stop right there. No transformation, no rebellion, just resignation. But what if I told you that's not the truth? What if I told you the story you've been telling yourself about your suffering is incomplete? Half a story, with the most powerful half left untold. Because here's the brutal truth. Your pain didn't break you. You just never forged anything from it. You never turned it into fire. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most radical minds in history, suffered more than most dare to imagine. Debilitating illnesses that left him physically destroyed. Years of isolation so intense it would drive most people insane. Rejection, not just from individuals, but from the entire intellectual world. And yet, he didn't crawl into victimhood. He didn't numb the pain. He transmuted it. He turned it into power. He didn't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" He asked, "What strength can I build from this?" He didn't bury his suffering. He used it to create works so potent they shook the foundations of philosophy and still echo today. Nietzsche coined a concept you've probably heard. Amor Fati, love your fate. Not tolerate it, not survive it. Love it, even the suffering, especially the suffering, because it shaped you, because it stripped away the illusions, because it left behind something no one else can fake. Depth, fire, truth. He also said something else, a phrase you've heard before but probably never understood in its full, terrifying, beautiful power. What does not kill me makes me stronger. That's not motivational fluff. That's not a cute quote for your Instagram bio. It's a declaration of war, a blueprint for transformation. If you're still watching this, it's because something in you knows it's time. Time to stop running. Time to stop numbing. Time to stop defining yourself by what hurt you. This is not just a video. This is an invitation to descend into the fire and come out the other side transformed. Because your pain was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to be a forge. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Your pain did not disappear just because you learned how to function. Trauma does not vanish because you became productive. Loss does not dissolve because you forced yourself to move on. What happened to you didn't end. It went underground. And whatever is pushed into the dark does not become harmless. It becomes influential. It shapes your reactions, your fears, your defenses, your relationships, your self-image, and the invisible limits you place on your own life. You tell yourself you're fine because you're not crying anymore. Because you get up, go to work, smile when necessary, and keep everything under control. But control is not healing. Control is containment, and containment has a cost. The cost is emotional numbness. The cost is chronic tension. The cost is a quiet, persistent sense that you are living beneath your true capacity. You don't feel fully alive, not because you're broken, but because a part of you is still frozen in the moment where everything went wrong. Nietzsche understood something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Suffering does not damage you by itself. What damages you is unresolved suffering. Pain that is denied, suppressed, or turned into identity does not disappear. It corrodes. It becomes resentment. It becomes self-doubt. It becomes the voice in your head that whispers, "Don't try, don't trust, don't hope too much." Over time, this voice doesn't sound like pain anymore. It sounds like you. This is where most people get trapped. Nietzsche observed that when confronted with deep suffering, People usually choose one of two psychologically destructive strategies. The first is denial and escape. You distract yourself, you stay busy, you numb, you scroll, you drink. You chase pleasure, validation, stimulation, anything that keeps you from sitting alone with your own thoughts. You tell yourself you're being strong, but what you're really doing is running. And the tragedy of running is this: no matter how far you go, your pain comes with you. It waits, patiently. The second strategy is victimhood. Here, pain becomes your identity. Your suffering becomes the story you tell about who you are and why your life cannot change. You don't just say, "Something terrible happened to me." You say, "This is who I am now." And without realizing it, you start using your pain as an explanation for stagnation, as a shield against risk, as a justification for staying exactly where you are. Victimhood feels validating, but it quietly robs you of agency. It freezes your future in the shape of your past. Nietzsche despised both of these paths because both waste the most valuable resource a human being possesses, the transformative potential of suffering. He proposed a third path, transmutation, not suppressing pain, not glorifying it, but actively working with it, digesting it, extracting meaning, strength, insight, and power from it. Transmutation means you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Because that question leads nowhere. Instead, you ask, "What did this experience give me that someone who never suffered this way will never have?" Depth, perception, emotional intelligence, resilience tested in real fire, not theoretical adversity. The ability to recognize suffering in others. The ability to stand alone without collapsing. These are not weaknesses, these are forged capacities. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never want to hear. If your pain is still destroying you, it is because it has not been integrated. Integration is not forgetting. It is not forgiving prematurely. It is not pretending it didn't hurt. Integration means you allow yourself to feel it fully, understand it deeply, and then consciously decide what it will become inside you. Because pain that is not integrated will decide for you, and it will not be gentle. When you finally sit with your pain instead of fighting it, something shifts. You begin to realize that the very experience you thought ruined you actually stripped away illusions, exposed false dependencies, and forced you to develop internal strength you would never have built otherwise. This is where power begins. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind. So I'll ask you directly, without comfort, without softness. What have you done with your pain? Have you been numbing it? Have you been hiding behind it? Or have you dared to work with it? Because the way you answer that question determines whether your suffering will continue to poison your life or become the foundation of your greatest strength. In the next part, we're going to confront one of the most radical ideas Nietzsche ever proposed, Amor Fati. And if you truly understand it, you will realize why loving your fate, including your deepest pain, is not weakness, but the final step towards psychological freedom. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. There is an idea so violent to the ego, so alien to our modern obsession with comfort, that most people reject it the moment they hear it. It sounds insane, almost offensive, until you live through enough pain to understand it in your bones. Nietzsche called it Amor Fati, love of fate, not acceptance, not tolerance, love. Love what happened. Love every brutal second of it. Love the loss, the failure, the betrayal, the moment your world collapsed, not despite the pain, but because of it. You may be tempted to dismiss this as philosophical masochism, but that's not what Nietzsche was saying. He wasn't asking you to enjoy suffering. He wasn't glorifying pain. He was offering you a path to liberation. Because once you stop wishing the past had been different, once you stop fighting the reality of what shaped you, you become invincible. Think about this. How much of your energy has been spent resenting what happened? How many sleepless nights have you wasted replaying conversations, regretting decisions, fantasizing about different outcomes? And what has it changed? Absolutely nothing. The past remains unchanged, but your relationship to it can evolve. That's where your power is. That's what Amor Fati demands. Nietzsche challenges you to go further than simply making peace with your past. He asks, if you could go back and remove the pain, would you? And here's the twist. If you did, you would erase the person you became because of it. You would undo the strength you forged in darkness. You would kill the perspective you earned in fire. Amor Fati means seeing your suffering not as an obstacle to who you could have been, but as the very condition for becoming who you are. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's psychological integration at its highest level. It's the capacity to say, yes, it hurt. Yes, it changed me. And no, I would not erase it. Because buried inside that pain were gifts you could never have found in comfort. Clarity, compassion, detachment from superficial bullshit, the ability to endure, the ability to empathize, the ability to stand in your truth when everything else collapses. If you are honest, you'll see it. The most powerful parts of you were born in moments you thought would destroy you. But Amor Fati isn't a feeling. It's a practice, a discipline. It's sitting with your pain and asking, what did this experience give me that nothing else could? And when you can answer that, you begin to rewrite your internal narrative. The victim becomes the alchemist. The wound becomes the weapon. The scar becomes a mark of wisdom, not weakness. So here's your challenge. Go back to your deepest pain, not to relive it, but to reclaim it. Don't ask, why did this happen to me? Ask, what has this prepared me for? Because pain, when transmuted, becomes preparation for impact, for depth, for greatness. Most people never reach this level of understanding. They spend their lives running from pain or being defined by it. But you're not here for that. You're here to forge yourself into something rare, something real, something unbreakable. And that begins when you stop seeing your pain as the enemy and start seeing it as the initiation. Amor Fati is the gate. But what lies beyond that gate is even more terrifying and even more powerful. In the next part, we'll enter the forge itself. It's a brutal, transformative process, one you're about to face. Are you ready to walk into the fire? You've heard the phrase 1,000 times. It's printed on gym walls, whispered in locker rooms, tossed around as hollow encouragement after someone loses everything. What does not kill me makes me stronger. But most people never stop to ask, what does that actually mean? What kind of strength are we talking about? And why do so many people suffer but come out bitter, broken, or numb instead of stronger? Nietzsche didn't write this line to motivate athletes or comfort the heartbroken. He meant it as a warning and as a challenge. He was describing a violent inner process, a psychological furnace where everything false inside you is burned away, where your ego is shattered, your illusions are destroyed, your comfort is stripped. And if you survive that fire, not just physically but spiritually, you emerge transformed. You don't come back as who you were, you come back reforged. Real strength isn't about muscles or bravado. It's about what remains when everything collapses. When the relationship ends, the business fails, the friend betrays, the body breaks down, the dream crumbles, and you're left alone in the ruins with nothing but your own mind. That is the test. That's where Nietzsche lived, and that's where you either evolve or disintegrate. He understood that pain alone doesn't guarantee growth. Trauma doesn't automatically make you wise. Suffering doesn't always build character. In fact, most people are crushed by it because they go through it unconsciously. They let the pain define them instead of using it as raw material. But those who face the fire deliberately, who choose to enter it and stay awake while it burns, those are the ones who emerge with something the world can't take away. This is not an intellectual process. It's biological, psychological, existential. Imagine your soul as a muscle. No tension, no resistance, no growth. It atrophies. Now imagine life throwing you under emotional weight so heavy it threatens to snap you in half. If you don't give up, if you bear it, breathe through it, integrate it, you become capable of carrying more than you ever imagined. You don't just get stronger, you become formidable. Look back at your life. The moments that destroyed you also gave you depth. The heartbreak that made you question your worth also taught you discernment. The failure that humiliated you also broke your addiction to external validation. The darkness that terrified you also introduced you to your inner light. That's not poetic. That's evolutionary. That's what Nietzsche meant. Suffering is not the enemy. It is the forge. But here's the truth. Most people won't tell you. This process is not automatic. Pain alone does not transform. It only has the potential to transform. What unlocks that potential is your willingness to confront it fully, extract from it, and build with it. You must stop asking to be rescued from your suffering and start apprenticing under it. Because pain, when approached consciously, becomes a mentor, a mirror, a weapon. So ask yourself, what specific abilities, perspectives, strengths do you now carry only because of what you endured? What did you gain that others, those who lived safe, untested lives, will never have? Resilience forged in chaos, compassion born of heartbreak, strategic thinking developed in survival, calm in crisis, courage when everyone else panics. These are your advantages. These are your tools. These are your weapons. But to wield them fully, you must own them. And to own them, you must look your pain in the eye and say, "Thank you. You didn't break me. You built me." In the next part, we'll go into the most critical dimension of transmutation, rewriting the story of your suffering. Not what happened, but what it means. This is where the real alchemy happens. You cannot change what happened to you. You can't undo the betrayal, the abandonment, the humiliation, the trauma. You can't go back and give yourself a safer childhood, a more loyal partner, a second chance at that one moment that slipped through your fingers. The past is sealed, set in stone. But Nietzsche knew something most people never realize. While you cannot change what happened, you have complete power over what it means. That is not a platitude. That is a weapon. Meaning is not objective. It is not handed to you by reality. It is authored, which means you are either consciously writing the meaning of your life or unconsciously accepting a meaning that was implanted in you by pain, fear, or someone else's broken beliefs. Most people carry around an unconscious interpretation of their suffering that keeps them in chains. They think, "I was rejected because I wasn't lovable," or "I failed because I'm not good enough," or "They left because I'm too much," or "I was abused because I was weak." These aren't facts, these are interpretations. And yet, people repeat them for years as if they were gospel. That's how narratives become prisons. Nietzsche saw this as one of the greatest tragedies of the human mind. Our failure to realize that suffering does not come with built-in meaning. The meaning you attach to your pain is not a discovery. It is a creation. And that gives you enormous power. Because when you reclaim authorship over what your suffering means, you stop being a passive victim of life's events and become an active creator of your identity. Let's get brutally honest. What is the story you've been telling yourself about your pain? That it damaged you beyond repair? That it proves you're not worthy of love? That it's evidence that life is cruel and meaningless? That story may feel true, but that's only because you've repeated it so often, for so long, that it hardened into belief. But belief is not truth. And meaning is not fixed. Meaning is fluid, and it is malleable in the hands of someone conscious enough to reshape it. Nietzsche saw this process not as therapy, but as alchemy, turning psychological lead into gold. You take the most bitter, toxic, destabilizing experience you've endured, and you ask, what can I do with this? You don't deny what happened. You don't sugarcoat it. You honor the wound by turning it into wisdom. You do not lie to yourself. You simply refuse to let your pain be useless. Let's take a concrete example. You were betrayed. That's a fact. The victim's story is, I was betrayed because I was stupid, naive, unworthy. But the alchemist says, that betrayal taught me how to recognize deceit, how to protect my boundaries, how to sharpen my intuition. It woke me up to the importance of discernment. It showed me who not to become. See the difference? The facts didn't change, the meaning did. And that shift changes everything. This is the essence of Nietzsche's idea of revaluation, the power to reassign value to the events of your life. Pain is not automatically negative. It only feels negative when it leads to helplessness, isolation, or shame. But when it leads to strength, clarity, empathy, and purpose, it becomes sacred. That's what Nietzsche meant when he said, to live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Survival is not enough. You must extract meaning and then use it as fuel. Rewriting the meaning of your pain is not easy. It requires confrontation, honesty, responsibility, and above all, agency. You must be willing to say, yes, this happened, but I refuse to let it reduce me. I will use this. I will make this count. I will become something because of it, not in spite of it. That's what separates the awakened from the asleep. That's what separates those who rot in their trauma from those who rise with scarred hands and burning eyes. So take a moment. Think about your most defining wound. Ask yourself, what meaning have I attached to this pain? Is that meaning serving me, or is it strangling me? If it's the latter, it's time to rewrite the story, not with fantasy, not with lies, but with clarity, with intention, with fire. In the next part, we will move even deeper into Nietzsche's most daring idea of all, the eternal return. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. There is a thought experiment so ruthless, so soul-exposing, that Nietzsche called it the heaviest weight. He didn't offer it as inspiration, but as a test, a brutal confrontation with yourself. He called it the eternal return. And the question is simple, but merciless. If you had to live your exact life, moment by moment, over and over again for all eternity, would you say yes? No edits, no erasing, no do-overs, every failure, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every night you wept alone, every shameful thing you said or did, every loss you swore you'd never survive, lived again and again and again, forever. Would you celebrate that fate, or would the thought crush you? This is not theoretical. It's not abstract. This is a mirror held to your soul, and the reflection you see reveals everything about your relationship to your own life. If your immediate reaction is, no, I couldn't bear to live this again, Nietzsche wouldn't judge you, but he would tell you the work is unfinished. Your pain is still unprocessed. Your past is still haunting you. Your suffering is still something you're trying to escape, not something you've integrated. Because the goal is not to live a perfect life. The goal is to live a life so authentically yours, so fully metabolized, so deeply embraced, that even the darkest moments feel necessary. That's the point of the eternal return, not to imagine a flawless existence, but to ask yourself, Have I made my suffering meaningful enough that I would endure it again, willingly, for the sake of who I became through it? If you can answer yes, you have reached what Nietzsche called total affirmation. A radical yes to life, not just the pleasure, not just the victories, but the unbearable parts too. This is the ultimate test of transmutation. You don't just accept your fate, you embrace it. You see every scar as sacred. You look at your most agonizing memories and declare, I needed that. I would choose that again, because through that fire, I was forged. This level of psychological maturity isn't common. Most people live in resistance. They replay the past wishing it were different. They construct fantasies of how things should have gone. But Nietzsche's eternal return shatters that illusion. It forces you to confront the core of your existence and ask, is my life worth living, not once, but forever? If the answer is no, that's not a failure. It's a signal, a call to action. You don't need to rewrite the past. You need to revalue it. You need to extract from it the wisdom, the purpose, the transformation that would make it worth living again. The point of the eternal return is not masochism, it's integration. It's about reaching a point where your relationship to suffering has become so conscious, so empowered, that even the agony becomes a source of gratitude. Ask yourself, what still makes you say no? What moments in your life would you erase if you could? What have you not yet forgiven, not yet faced, not yet learned from? That's where the work is. That's where the fire still burns, and that's where you need to go. Because when you can finally look at your past and say, I wouldn't change a thing. Every moment carved me into who I am, you become untouchable. Not because you haven't suffered, but because you've used every ounce of it. That is Amor Fati taken to its limit. That is becoming who you are, not in theory, but in blood, in sweat, in scars. Everything we've explored so far means nothing if it stays in the realm of theory. Nietzsche didn't write for philosophers locked in ivory towers. He wrote for you, for the human being standing in the ruins of their life, asking, what now? Philosophy, in its purest form, is not an idea. It's a practice. And if you've made it this far, it means you're ready to take your pain and do something with it. So how do you do that? How do you take something as raw, messy, and devastating as trauma and convert it into something useful, even beautiful? The first step is this. Stop running from your story. Stop editing it to make it more palatable for others. Stop hiding the parts that make you feel ashamed. You don't need to share it with the world, but you do need to face it with honesty. Write it down. Revisit the moment everything broke. Feel it, not to relive the suffering, but to reclaim your authority over it. When you finally look at the wound without flinching, you begin to see what it gave you. The strength, the clarity, the depth. That is the beginning of transmutation. Next, you extract the lesson. Every form of pain carries wisdom hidden inside it. Wisdom that only reveals itself when you're willing to ask the right questions. What did this experience teach me about myself? What illusions did it destroy? What power did it awaken in me? This isn't toxic positivity. This is survival through awareness. Pain that is not examined becomes poison. Pain that is examined becomes fuel. Then comes the act of creation. Take what you've been through and make something from it. Write, speak, build, mentor, serve. Channel the energy of your suffering into something that outlives it. When you create from pain, you don't just process it, you alchemize it. You transform what once haunted you into something that empowers others. That's the shift, from victim to creator, from passive receiver of life to active forger of meaning. And finally, live accordingly. Let your pain inform your standards. Let it shape how you love, how you lead, how you protect your time and energy. Let it become the reason you no longer tolerate what once destroyed you. Nietzsche believed that true strength isn't about appearing invulnerable. It's about becoming someone who has faced their own personal hell and returned not only intact, but dangerous. Not cruel, not bitter, but dangerous in the sense that nothing owns you anymore. Not fear, not regret, not the opinions of others. So here's your final challenge. Take everything you've learned about yourself through suffering and turn it into a personal code, a philosophy, a way of being. Live in a way that honors the pain you've survived. That's how you respect your suffering, not by wallowing in it, but by refusing to waste it. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me, what strength or insight have you gained through your pain? Don't just consume this video, engage with it. Speak your truth. Someone else might need to hear exactly what you have to say. And if this spoke to you, don't stop here. Watch the next video. You're on a path now, and the next step matters. I'll see you there.